You ever see a tiny janitor climb a 14-foot military obstacle wall blindfolded? No joke, she didn't just climb it. She vaulted it like a ghost. And when she did, every single officer's jaw hit the floor because what she revealed that day would shake the entire Blackstone Military Academy to its core. Yeah, you heard me right, the whole place, rocked by one woman in coveralls with a broom. Stick around, this is a story about grit, secrets, and a legacy no one saw coming. The morning sun was sharp that day, slicing long shadows across the sprawling Blackstone Military Academy training grounds. You could hear the steady squeak of a wheeled cart rolling along the perimeter fence, rhythmically marking the pace like a metronome. And there, pushing that cart with deliberate care, was Nora Vance. Now, Nora wasn't much to look at, barely 5'3", no heavier than 120 pounds, just a small woman in faded blue coveralls and worn-out sneakers. Her brown hair, streaked with gray, was tied back in a simple ponytail. She looked like any janitor you'd pass by and barely notice. But her eyes, those hazel eyes, were sharp and watchful, cataloging everything, every move, every stumble, every breath of those 200 recruits preparing for the day's brutal training. Folks at Blackstone called her the Ghost, not to be cruel, but because she seemed to appear wherever the action was, silently sweeping, quietly observing, always there, yet unnoticed. No one knew quite why she was so familiar with every inch of the obstacle course, but if you asked around, you'd hear whispers. She knows that course better than any instructor. And today, just like every other day, Nora swept the cracked concrete and dirt paths, her broom collecting dust and leaves. But her mind wasn't on the broom, it was on the recruits lining up, faces taut with determination and nerves, ready to tackle what might be the toughest obstacle course in the world. Blackstone was no joke, a sprawling 12-acre gauntlet designed to break the strongest soldiers and forge the best special forces operatives. The course had everything: 40-foot rope climbs that scraped the sky, water pits that chilled you to the bone, mud crawls under razor wire, and the infamous verdict wall, a 14-foot vertical monstrosity with a backward overhang that had ended more dreams than any other challenge. Today, 200 elite recruits, already battle-tested and handpicked from branches across the military, stood shoulder to shoulder on the starting line. The air was thick with tension, not just from the physical test ahead, but from the unspoken respect, even fear, that this course commanded. Captain Rodriguez, a drill sergeant whose voice was sharp enough to cut through steel, paced before them like a predator. His voice boomed across the grounds as he laid down the challenge. It wasn't just about speed or strength, but teamwork and endurance. "The clock starts now," he said, voice ringing out. "It doesn't stop until every one of you crosses that finish line." Boots hit the dirt, dust rose, and the course roared to life. Nora kept sweeping, but now she was closer to the control tower, where instructors and safety techs monitored every move. To most, she was just part of the background. But she wasn't. Not all. The first obstacles fell one by one. Recruits swung like monkeys across ropes, splashed through water, crawled through mud looking like warriors forged from the earth itself. Then at the seventh obstacle, a tricky network of horizontal bars and swinging rings, something went terribly wrong. Midway across, one of the support cables let out a high-pitched whine. Then another. The technicians in the tower scrambled, shouting, calling for a halt. The recruits froze, hanging tensely, muscles trembling, trapped in mid-air. The control room was chaos, voices rising, calls over radios, hands pointing at screens, flashing red warnings. Chief Safety Inspector Williams was pale as he barked orders. "Evacuate immediately. The whole section is compromised." But evacuation wasn't simple. 200 soldiers scattered across 12 acres. Many suspended 10 or 15 feet off the ground. Sudden movement could mean disaster. Captain Rodriguez took command, barking through his radio for calm, safety protocols, medical teams on standby. But Nora saw the bigger picture, one that the techs missed. The failing cables weren't isolated to Obstacle 7. They were tied into the rigging for Obstacles 8 through 12, including the verdict wall. If that cable snapped, It could trigger a chain reaction, a cascading collapse that might seriously injure or kill dozens. Without hesitation, Nora walked into the control tower, her steps calm but purposeful, the janitor's stoop replaced by the precise bearing of someone used to making life-or-death decisions. The room was thick with tension. Inspector Williams was arguing for full evacuation. Rodriguez warned about the risks of moving the recruits. Technicians barked out data. Nora cleared her throat softly and said, "You need to check the interconnects between obstacles 8 through 12. At first, she was ignored. Then she added, her voice firmer, "The primary support between obstacle 7 and the verdict wall shares a load. The main cable will fail in maybe 3 minutes, and when it does, the wall's foundation will shift. Anyone on the wall has to move to the eastern face. Positions 7 through 12 those will hold." Rodriguez's eyes narrowed, incredulous. "How do you know that?" She didn't hesitate. Pulling up the digital schematics, she highlighted stress fractures already forming in the main junction. "I designed this course." The room fell into stunned silence. You see, Nora Vance wasn't just a janitor. She was the secret mastermind behind the Blackstone obstacle course, the project lead from 2018 to 2021. A decorated colonel, once part of the legendary Night Division, an ultra-classified special operations unit, so secret that many thought it was just a myth. The Night Division operatives were ghosts capable of infiltrating any place unseen, disappearing without a trace, masters of stealth and spatial awareness beyond imagination. Nora's calm, commanding presence spoke volumes. She was no ordinary maintenance worker. She was a soldier who had gone deep undercover, watching, waiting, ready to step in when the mission demanded. The technicians barely had time to digest this when the catastrophic sound tore through the morning air, a sharp snap, and the main cable at Obstacle 7 broke. 37 recruits dropped several feet, scrambling to hold on as the horizontal bars buckled. The shockwave rippled through the connected cables, the verdict wall shuddered, its anchors groaning under stress. But the recruits who trusted Nora's warning had already repositioned themselves, clinging to the safe eastern holds. When the wall shifted nearly 18 inches eastward, they stayed steady, saving lives and preventing chaos. Then, something no one expected happened. Nora, still blindfolded with a strip of cloth she'd tied herself moments earlier, vaulted the verdict wall with a fluid grace that defied reason. Her hands found holds as if the wall whispered its secrets to her fingertips. No hesitación, no wastid motion. She moved like water flowing uphill, every step precise, every grip sure. Even the toughest instructors were speechless. At the wall's brutal overhang, a backward-tilted 15-degree section that usually stopped the best climbers cold, she didn't pause. Her body flowed over it like a breeze. Less than 30 seconds from leap to top, Nora pulled herself onto the platform, the blindfolded janitor who was suddenly the Academy's greatest enigma. She untied the cloth and looked down at the assembled crowd, voice carrying like a command. "The failure will begin in 90 seconds. Move to safe holds on the eastern face positions 7 through 12. That's her only chance." Captain Rodriguez shook his head in disbelief. "How did you know the holds?" She smiled slightly, with an edge of pride. "Because I designed every inch of this course." That revelation hit the room like a bombshell. Blackstone's course was legendary, its design classified to the highest levels. And here stood the woman who'd made it all possible, disguised in coveralls and a janitor's hat. Lieutenant Park piped up skeptically, "But the lead designer should be a major or higher." "You say you were a colonel?" Nora nodded calmly. "Coronel. Night Division, the most classified special ops unit in the military. Some of you may have heard stories that we don't exist. Officially, we don't." The weight of those words settled. Night Division was the stuff of legends, operatives who mastered techniques too advanced for conventional training, like the blindfolded navigation Nora had just shown. Fewer than a dozen people worldwide knew those techniques. Most were declared dead. The control tower's chatter faded as Nora explained the method. A mix of spatial memory, tactile feedback, and what they called environmental integration training that allowed operatives to navigate complex terrain blind, making them nearly unstoppable. The morning's disaster was averted by the janitor who was, in truth, a warrior hiding in plain sight. But this story doesn't end with a simple rescue. As the dust settled, Nora's secret could no longer stay buried. Captain Rodriguez promised to report the incident a call that would echo up the chain of command and expose hidden truths about Blackstone and the future of military training. Nora shrugged when asked what came next. "I'll probably have to find a new assignment." The janitor job was temporary anyway, a cover to keep watch, to ensure the course remained true to her vision. And yet, the ripple effects were just beginning. Months later, a new advanced training center rose, built for the classified techniques Nora introduced. 12 elite candidates trained to navigate blindfolded walls, to trust their hands, their memory, their instincts. One recruit, Stevens, a tough Army Ranger, struggled at first, but Nora's calm coaching guided him. "Trust your muscle memory. Your body knows the path. Let go of sight." Stevens' success inspired others, though many candidates found the psychological challenge overwhelming. Night Division had chosen its operatives carefully. Only those with iron minds and resilience could handle the sensory deprivation. Nora worked closely with neuroscientists, studying the brain's amazing ability to rewire itself for spatial awareness beyond normal limits. The techniques weren't just about physical strength, they rewired perception itself. But the biggest test was yet to come. A classified call from the Pentagon. A hostage rescue in Southeast Asia, a warehouse with labyrinthine, deliberately confusing layouts. Conventional teams would be blind literally and figuratively. Night Division skills navigation without sight, operating in complete darkness, would be the only way in. Nora had to decide. Were her candidates ready? 6 months of training might not be enough, for the stakes involved 6 innocent lives hung in the balance. In the quiet hours before dawn, Nora made the call. A mission was greenlit. 3 of her best candidates were deployed to a battlefield where failure meant death, not just for them, but for hostages counting on their success. The janitor who once swept the grounds in silence had ignited a new chapter for special operations. So, here were the story of how a small woman in coveralls and worn sneakers vaulted a wall blindfolded and changed military history. A story of hidden strength, secret knowledge, and the quiet heroes who operate in shadows. But it also leaves us with a question. How many others like Nora walk among us, unseen, waiting for their moment to change the game? And beyond that, what if the techniques she revealed one day find their way beyond the battlefield? Could they save lives in civilian crises, help those with disabilities, or revolutionize how we navigate the world? What do you think? Is it time to shine a light on these hidden powers, or are some secrets better left in the shadows? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more stories that challenge what you think is possible.